What's the most ridiculous policy your employer ever enacted or tried to enact? I have a buddy who worked for a very large asphalt paving company. His division had approximately 300 employees. Each employee was terminated a week before Christmas and rehired after the new year. They were all forced to take a 2-week vacation and never gained benefits because not one worked a full year. That definitely sounds illegal. Best Buy had a walk past the customer like you're doing something else, then turn back and ask them an unrelated question before trying to help policy thing. Walked up on 2 fellow employees acting it out and asked if they were practicing picking up girls. Shortly after this they turned it into just asking them a stupid question like, hey customer, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream, or have you ever ridden a donkey? I'm not exaggerating. My GM asked customers if they have ridden a freaking donkey. You should have seen their faces. I worked as an assistant manager at a movie theater chain and my manager told me we couldn't go to school. Yes, because I actually wanna sling popcorn till I die. Got out of there. My shop tried to make all the apprentices go for extra safety classes after work or you'd be fired. Problem is that we are already going to 2-3-hour apprentice courses a week through our union that teach us the exact same thing. Enough people complained that the union got involved and forced the employer to 1. Make it optional and 2. Pay us to go if we did. I went just for the extra money. I tried to get our shop in a union because we kept being required to come early and stay late for meeting, which was the smallest of our issues. But everyone backed down when we set up the information meeting. I hate my co-workers. Be and moan all day about how your rights are infringed, but when someone tries to change things suddenly everything is fine. When I worked at Forever 21, we had to show our manager our bags, purses, pockets etc. when we left to go get food, go to the bathroom, or at the end of our shift. This was supposedly to keep theft down. At the time I worked there, I'd been having pretty severe reactions to perfume, so my doctor gave me a special EpiPen to carry around in case I got sick. I had it in my bag, along with a book and some other junk I brought to work. One day I was showing my bag to my manager before my lunch break and she saw the EpiPen. She asked what it was. I told her it was for allergies. She reached into my bag, took my EpiPen and told me that no needles or drugs were allowed to be used by employees during work hours. As per regulations outlined in the employee code I signed at hire, I was completely dumbfounded, and in my days asked, you do know what an EpiPen is, right? She tells me that she doesn't care. I can't be shooting up in the bathroom on my break. She kept saying it was in the rules, blah blah blah. I talked to mall security. They came and had a screaming match with her. The next day we all had to sign a new employee contract that redacted the previous drug policy and the rule about showing her our purse. Till no diabetics have ever been employed by Forever 21. My boss wanted photos of us working to put on our social media pages. Only problem was we are photographers, so on every shoot we went on we now had to take 2 people so one could shoot photos of the other shooting photos. It all stopped when I turned in a photo of my colleague editing a photo of me taking a photo of him. It all stopped when I turned in a photo of my colleague editing a photo of me taking a photo of him. Incredible. Worked for a website. Corporate installed new web filters. Didn't want us wasting time on the internet while at work. They actually blocked our own website. Granted, it was a huge company that owned many properties, and we were a very small part of it. But still, there were a couple of days where we literally couldn't get anything done because we couldn't access our own website. Reminds me of my school's filter. Tried to do a biology assignment, and the CSIRO website was blocked. That's right. One of the world's premier research organizations was on the blacklist. My boss decided that we should follow Colston Creamery and sing a song every time we got a tip, no matter the denomination. He even made his own jingle up. This was a mom and pop ice cream shop, and I quit a week later. The fricking jingle made me stop tipping at Colston. I once had a boss that made everyone write in a journal every single day. You couldn't leave work unless you made an entry into the journal about your day and your feelings. The company time clock started rounding to the nearest 15-minute, unannounced. Only it wasn't nearest. It was next 15-minute in the morning and previous 15-minute in the evenings. If you arrived at 7:46 it put you down for arriving 8 am. If you left at 17:14 then it put you down for 1700 hours. When folks noticed it they confronted the boss and were told it was to average out the time to get suited up and down at the beginning and end of the shift. We pointed out that suit up time is payable. Then the next day it quit rounding, unannounced. I worked at a place with a clock like that. People just hung out in the break room until the appropriate time, then all lined up to punch their card in a 60-second window. It was the second most efficient thing that crew ever did. At one point, Target tried to change the term feedback to feed forward because it sounded less negative. I almost got sent home that day because I couldn't stop laughing about how stupid it was. IT support and we were bringing a new company onto our network, had to replace all their computers, provide on-site training, etc. The brand new project manager ordered 100 orange vests, like the ones you see workers on the side of the road wearing, only these had the words "I can help" in big bold black letters. Get a memo from him saying that it's mandatory that everyone on the site wear them. We meet with him and basically say they are ugly and we will look ridiculous wearing them. It will make us look like a bunch of morons. He decided that he was right and we were wrong and went right up to the president of our company and demanded that he reprimand us. President decides to give us a visit to see what is up. The project manager is with him and we pull out the neon orange and green vests. The president turns around and says they are hideous. I won't allow any of my employees to wear those vests. The project manager lasted 1 week and was replaced by another one of our team. Work in a pretty small time cafe. Pretty much a family business aside from me and the chef and my buddy. And my boss goes on holiday to get married. First day after the person in charge, her sister and dating my buddy, gathers everyone and says if we're not 10 minutes early we don't get a break throughout our shift. Never stuck. Seems like an attempt to show power. It never stuck because it's illegal. My company recently rolled out Bit 9. Program that blocks all unknown executables on all PCs. In theory it's a great way to protect your PC. The problem is that I'm a developer and I can't even test programs that I built. Our IT refuses to make any exceptions for it. Luckily, I have found a way to bypass Bit 9. So at least I can still do my job. Dude, just waste time and say you can't test. A bunch of positions were consolidated. I was one of the few that got to keep my job plus take on the responsibilities of a few others. As a favor the boss switched us all from hourly to salaried workers and told us we would get paid for 40 hours of work no matter how much or how little we worked, so long as we came into the office every day. A bull's way of denying us overtime pay. Pretty much everyone in the same boat as me just stopped working on Fridays at noon. Within 6 months, we all found other jobs elsewhere. Overtime is by approval only. You must stay till the job's done, but if you don't get approval for overtime we won't pay it. Wanna guess what happened when I asked for approval? I'll put your request in. Keep working. Oh, the doll would love to hear about that crap, I'm sure. I worked at a fast food fried chicken place for a few years. My boss was generally a great guy, but he had one pet peeve that would cause him to become irrationally angry. The company that owned our store mandated that we have team meetings a few times a year. We would all come in early on a Saturday before we opened, sit around, and listen to our manager update us on new products, complain about our work, blah blah blah. These meetings were mandatory, and if we missed one we could be written up or even fired. And one more thing, we were not to clock in or get paid for these meetings. Our boss, the one I mentioned earlier, would flip his crap if someone even asked why. His only excuse was, why wouldn't you want to be better at your job? We were mostly teenagers who didn't care enough or single parents who needed the job. So no one wanted to risk getting fired by pointing out that it probably wasn't legal. I was his favorite employee and he came very close to firing me once when I complained. I heard after I left that someone eventually went to the owners and threatened to sue if this continued, and they promised to give all of their employees compensation for past meetings. But that never happened either. If I knew then what I know now, I would have spoken up more forcefully, gotten fired, and drove straight to a lawyer's office. Having to set up that cube with their monitor in the back completely visible, and your back to the opening aisle. But the overlord who brought forth this great plan had extreme objections to the idea that people with an office, like her, have to set up the same way. These are the worst types of people. We are not allowed to take more than 2 vacation days in a row, so if you want a week off you need to do 2 vacation days, 1 personal day, then 2 more vacation days. I used to work for a popular UK Italian-ish chain restaurant. 6 months into working there, our manager went on some corporate conference and came back with this idea that all waiting staff should abandon notebooks. Apparently, writing down someone's order stopped personal interaction with customers, who responded better to people committing their order to memory. Okay. The near trick they came up with to remember orders was to parrot everything the customer said back to them, word for word. Not only that, but it was felt that standing by a seated table made it seem that the staff were superior to the customers. So instead we had to squat next to tables. Literally, squat down to eye level. I tried it once and the couple I was serving looked so alarmed that I refused to do it again. Yeah, frick that, I get nervous when my waiter doesn't write my order down. I don't care how personable they are when taking my order, they have time while checking on us for drinks or dessert to build up rapport with me. Not really a policy, but when I was in high school I worked at the crappy local movie theater. Sometimes when the dumpster was full they would get us to jump on it to try and compress the garbage. It was kinda fun, so we usually went along with it. One day seemingly randomly I decided nah, I don't feel like it. So I told the assistant manager working that day that it was too dangerous and I refused to do it. He got pissed off and wrote me up. The next shift I worked, the head manager told me if he had been around he would have sent me home on the spot. So then I decided to call Ministry of Labor, and the next day the head manager told me I would have never have asked you to jump on the garbage, and I don't think anyone was ever asked to do it again. Well, at least until I was fired maybe a year later for being late for a shift. Haha, I worked at a movie theater in high school too and they made us jump in the dumpster and compress the cardboard too. Completely forgot about that. You might want to consider not being outwardly happy while in the office so as not to upset those who are having a bad day. Yes, this was said. No moonlighting. Our economy is down and there weren't any raises this year at my company, so now I run the risk of losing my job if they find out I did some work on my friend's RV. Sick days count as personal time off, aka it's taken out of your vacation time. Personal time off may not be taken without 2 weeks advance notice in writing and approval from your manager, or you will have a written warning placed in your file. So, you're not allowed to get sick without scheduling it 2 weeks in advance and getting your manager's written approval to do so. It's a health insurance company. On one of my last days at work, I had handed in my 2-week notice already. My boss put a sign up on a door that said the next employee that slams this door in my presence will be terminated immediately because he was too cheap to fix the hydraulic thing on the top of the door. I didn't say anything, but what a way to tell all your employees they don't matter. If my boss doesn't give a crap about me, why should I care about the job? Please tell me you slammed the door on your way out. Worked at a discount clothing store, and my managers all demanded a co-worker who was 8 months pregnant cover the fitting room, on her feet, with no place to sit or any water, because no drinks allowed on the sales floor. Guys, there was definitely more than enough associates there who could have also done it, and offered to, but nope, it had been too long since she'd done a fitting room shift. Might get rusty at standing in one place and saying have a nice day to people, I guess. Policy. She was too afraid to comment back at them because they'd threatened to terminate her after the pregnancy before, but she'd been having a couple health concerns and was more concerned about baby, so she wanted the money more. It was tough to watch. Me and a co-worker ended up forcing her into a seat anyway, and as we were telling her that we'd take the blame for it and tell them we forced her to sit, a customer walked by and overheard us. This woman was apparently a mother of 4, and when we kind of evasively but honestly answered what was going on, she stormed up to managers and told them they were crooked and slimy for doing that to a scared young pregnant girl. It was pretty awesome to see them all embarrassed like that in front of other customers, and pregnant co-worker ended up getting a chair, and after baby was born healthy managed to get a much nicer job somewhere else. So happy ending. Not nearly as horrifying. But we also had a very strictly enforced policy where we had to always say something positive about the customer's purchase. Every time. Even if it was just an old woman buying a pair of plain socks or someone buying lingerie, I was expected to start up some kind of conversation specific to the item of clothing. Managers would come up behind you sometimes and silently observe for like 10-20 minutes to see if we were doing it. I got written up a couple times because I absolutely refused to start up stupid conversations if someone was just buying like a pair of panties or something. People already have enough anxiety about checking out. One needs the person ringing them up to start making dumbass comments about how cute the bows on their panties are or whatever, and certainly not in front of other customers. I worked for Parks and Rec. They had a skating rink, roller not ice, and ended up hiring someone who did not know how to roller skate. Of course this person decides to try skating on their first shift and falls down. After that no employees at the skating rink were allowed to wear skates. It certainly made things like leading skating games or activities a bit interesting. This literally sounds like it's out of porny. I work in a warehouse for a major cosmetics company. We were told that if a cologne or perfume broke and got on your hands, you would be fired for stealing if you didn't immediately wash it off. For some reason this one struck me as one of the craziest I've read on this thread. Had 4 consecutive bosses come into the section I worked in and order everyone to come in 15 minutes early, even though we already did. Our shift was from 0700-1500, and everyone got in at 0645. Getting in 15 minutes early at 0645 became 15 minutes early at 0630, then 0615, and finally 0600. Then some inbred looks up the regulation that says, if we're made to work a 9-hour shift, we have to be given an hour lunch. So now our official shift is 0600-1500 with an hour lunch, and we all have to be in at 0545. Goofy crap like this is why I got out of the military. The kitchen I worked at had a policy that you clock out 30 minutes after closing. It didn't matter if someone came in 1 minute before closing. We stopped being paid after 30 minutes. That's wage theft. That's illegal. 9:30 am HR announced by group email that the company would be reducing their contributions to existing employee pensions. 9:45 am HR announced by group email that they didn't mean what they'd written in the previous email and the reduced pension contributions would only apply to future employees. The second email may have been prompted by a polite email back pointing out the statutory regulations surrounding pension contributions in the UK. Employees must now use vulgar or offensive language. I had one where women had to wear hose unless their legs were tan. This one isn't horrible and I understand the reasoning, but even my doctor thought it was dumb. Only 50% of your sick time can be unscheduled, i.e., calling in and saying you can't make it because you have food poisoning. This means that I had a co-worker that had over 700 hours of sick time accrued because she was lucky enough to never get cancer or something where you know in advance that you'll be at the doctor all day. I worked somewhere that I was flat out told to only wear skirts. Pants were to be avoided. I was in my 20s at the time. I noticed that the middle-aged women were not held to the same standard. In the Navy, so I have a ton. Probably. The first one that springs to mind is if you take vacation on Friday and Monday, you're docked 4 days of vacation, because they count Saturday and Sunday. Wait, explain this vacation thing to me because we, Army, have an allotted time, generally Christmas and the beginning of summer, to go on vacation. Also they count Saturdays and Sundays, that's fricked. Did tech support at an outsourced call center. No mobile phones allowed in work. We were doing tech support for a mobile phone company. They gave us all work phones that we were never allowed to use at work. That is supposed to be so you can't steal personal info. Granted, the call center I worked at had demo phones to use for walkthroughs. Logging every amount of work you do that takes longer than 15 minutes so it can be tracked in burn down charts, etc. Frick Scrum. Yeah, I can't ever seem to find Reddit time on my time tracking sheet. Used to work at McDonald's years ago. One day it was decided that we would no longer be allowed to use scissors, like, for anything. From what I could gather, it wasn't my store manager's idea, but came from corporate. But my boss, being the McZombie that he was, immediately started enforcing this boneheaded rule. The only thing that the whole store was allowed to use was this pathetic pair of plastic scissors that wouldn't cut anything. The same kind of tiny plastic scissors that you give a small child so they don't murder themselves. I can't begin to describe how much that rules pee me off. I was the primary maintenance guy for the store, more or less a janitor. I was trusted to unload hundreds of boxes of food off trucks each week, to repair random things that would break. It was fine and dandy for me to use a power washer that could probably poke a hole through my hand. I was the one that cleaned the vats of 300+ degree oil. I drove my own car. I could legally buy guns or even join the army and help blow up the world, but scissors? Oh no, that's too dangerous. That place was ridiculous. I had a job where after I had already started the boss told me I had to cover my tattoos at work. There were people walking around with full sleeves and chest tattoos, but somehow the rules were different for me. B. Since our office is really productive while listening to music, since some of the work is repetitive, especially doing legal paperwork, my CEO decided to ban music and headphones since he can't see how music could be productive. Since then our numbers dropped and get P and confused on why. It's still banned and it's been months. The CEO's daughter gets them because of reasons. She just left because the server went down for 5 minutes and thought it wouldn't come back on. I worked in mental health facility. There was manager that tried to make people voluntarily give up their lunch hour to bring their lunch from home and sit in the break room and listen to him lecture about counseling practices. I was the only employee who refused, and I told upper management that I would go to HR if they tried to force me. Of course I had a target on my back from that point on, but I already had my exit plan ready anyway. Soon after I left, the manager was fired because he did some other things that people complained to both HR and the legal department about. My employer uses an accruing vacation system. Each paycheck you earn X amount of vacation hours. For people who have been there 10 years, this comes out to approximately a 1 day per month. This is vacation time and needs to be scheduled ahead of time. You also get 5 sick days per year. These are front loaded every January and can be used on the spot. When you call in sick you use these hours. At the end of the year the unused days are lost. So it's on you to use all 5 throughout the year. One year they decided to switch sick days to also be accruing. The announcement was made in November. This essentially meant that come January, everyone's sick day bank would be zero. After the first paycheck, 2 weeks everyone would have somewhere between 2-4 hours of sick time, not enough for a full day. After a second paycheck, 1 month. Some of the staff might have enough for a full day. We are based in Rochester, NY, 90 minutes from Buffalo for those who aren't aware. It gets very cold here in the winter. People get sick. We're also a hospital with thousands of employees and hundreds of sick patients. Suffice to say, we went back to front-loading sick days the next year. Access to the building needs to be more secure, and we have installed electronic locks with badge readers. The doors will require badge access starting Monday. Employees are required to be on site Wednesday for photographs, with a makeup session on Thursday. Badges will be issued Friday. Had a boss tell everyone that if the cash deposit for that day went missing he would take the money out of our paychecks even if we weren't there or if it wasn't our fault. It was a bad system to begin with. He also said he would dock our paychecks if things weren't clean to his specifications. I told the managers they couldn't dock our pay for those things as they were illegal. Luckily they never did, but the management owner was ridiculous in other ways. That is, telling me I wasn't worth a raise. Manager and top salesperson making $11 an hour. Telling me I would never get any smarter and that I shouldn't go back to school. I'm getting my master's in science education next year and this week finishing my realtor's license. That guy was a jerk. Not quite what OP asked, but I quit a job a few weeks ago and now my old boss is saying that he will not give me my final check until I sign a non-compete form. I don't think that's legal and you should report him to your local Department of Labor or equivalent. Worked as a design consultant with a company that had a very strict time schedule. You had to be there at 7:30 am or 8 am, take an hour lunch at 12, and leave at the 9-hour mark, 8 hours and 1 hour lunch. I realize this sounds petty, to gripe about what is effectively a regular work schedule. However, we were an office environment that didn't talk to customers and only had to meet a deadline for projects. There was just no need for this sort of strict assembly line type of schedule. Their late arrival penalty was the worst too. If you showed up at 7:35 because traffic was just that little bit heavier than normal, congratulations, your new start time was 8 AM. And if you showed up at 7:20, while they didn't directly expect the free 10 minutes, they very heavily encouraged the free time. Everywhere else I have worked in my 10+ career has been far more relaxed. Be there during core hours, 6 hours window from like 8 to 3. Do your 8 hours of work, leave when you're done. There was just no need for that strict of a schedule there. I had a job where we had a points system. At 7 attendance points you're fired, no matter what. A girl got in a car accident on the way to work, ended up in the hospital with a concussion, brought in proof from the ER and was still fired for hitting 7 points. She was one of the star employees too. The ESL school I work at doesn't have enough money to get ink for the printers, but my boss wanted to install cameras in every classroom. According to him, it was required by my country's educational authority, despite it not having jurisdiction over private institutes. Thankfully, he's selling the school back to the original owners. When I was a supervisor at a call center for streaming services, our stay-at-home mom of a project manager, she worked from home several states away, not kidding, tried to enact employee rules that included making it mandatory for all of our agents to arrive at their desks 15 minutes before their shift. She wanted them to spend that time doing any updates on their computers and reading any knowledge base changes that went into effect while they were gone. Unpaid. I brought these to the operations manager and told him I refused to let the employees sign these until that policy was removed. I was doing the company a favor, since you know it would result in a major class action lawsuit. The project manager tried to go around me and sent it via an internal systems message, and I had to go to every agent and tell them to ignore it. She left not long after, when the client called her out on a conference call for her other terrible ideas and stated they wouldn't re-sign with our company next year if she was still involved. Another with her. When I first started, we were clumsily taught how to do this weird report that had to be done every single day that took a sample of our calls and customer interactions and showed them to the client, supposedly to track trends. The client could see every interaction we did already, and easily see trends themselves. After about a year and a half, the new community manager, who was the one who said they would not re-sign with her involved, called me personally and asked what this report was and why they got it every day. Turns out no one from the client knew and just ignored it. After some digging, I learned Ms. Project manager made it up way back when some outage happened that she was slow to report on, to make it seem like we were being proactive. That report took 2 people a couple hours every day just because she had a knee-jerk panic reaction. We were so glad when the community manager told us to stop wasting time on it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.